conservative side to combat climate change, because there is 100% climate change. Okay? Not going to deny it. I am not a climate change denier. What I am going to deny, though, is the fact that we can stop climate change. That is absurd to think about. Because if you look back in history, there's nothing we can do about climate change. It's going to occur whether humans are here or not. Okay? So let's dig into what Biden's about to do. Probably with some executive orders. We're over here on the Epoch Times conservative website. Biden announced the sweeping policy changes to combat climate crisis. President Joe Biden on Wednesday revealed details of a set of broad environmental executive actions aimed at further tackling what he called the existential threat of climate change. The new whole government Biden administration policies seek to put climate change at the center of our domestic, national security, and foreign policy, and is drawing criticism for its high cost and potential job losses, as the United States is already facing huge pandemic-related job losses. We've already seen some of those jobs lost during the XL pipeline and the wall. Now, some people are talking about those jobs as temporary jobs. Yeah, those were temporary jobs, but do you realize that some of those people make hundreds of thousands of dollars during those temporary jobs? And a lot of times that money goes back into the economy. Biden did not address the direct impact of jobs lost from the forced move toward renewable energy resources, but emphasized the creation of jobs in the renewable energy industry. This executive order, it's about jobs, good-paying union jobs. It's about workers building our economy back better than before. It's a whole of government approach to put climate change at the center of our domestic national security and foreign policy. Biden said at a press conference on Wednesday, "We can put millions of Americans in the work, modernizing our water systems, transportation, and our energy infrastructure to withstand the impacts of extreme climate." I'm not going to go any further, because if renewable energy, even if you talk to some environmentalists, I challenge some of you to look into this. Even if you talk to some environmentalists, what you're going to find is, for example, wind turbines are, in the words of some environmentalists, worse for the environment than they are good for the environment. And that's because of all of the CO2 and everything that's needed to get them created, get them going. Apparently, they're a danger to birds. I don't know how that's a possibility. Even though that thing's moving, I mean, planes are moving pretty fast. I know that birds don't fly at where planes are flying, but that plane is on the ground getting up there. Are you telling me that a bird, if it's flying and it sees a plane coming at an angle, you tell me a bird can't distinguish rate of speed and geometry to some point of the imagination? I've seen birds in all sorts of formations doing thousands and hundreds of birds spinning around. You telling me they can't avoid a wind turbine spinning around? Look at that wind turbine. That's a good turbine. You telling me a bird can't avoid that? I'm speculative of that. But if you do talk to a lot of environmentalists, I would strongly recommend looking this up. Wind turbines are actually detrimental to the environment. Kind of the opposite of the effect that they have. But you know what I'm going to assume? This has to do with the money that has been put into renewable energy. It has nothing to do with the jobs that are going to be created by the renewable energy market. You know why? Because I got a feeling the Democrat Party probably has some investors who probably are invested in renewable energy. And they've bet on that being the future. And so they can't miss out on their bet. They can't miss out on their bet. So what I think would be a good argument for the conservative side would be, we can't stop climate change from happening. We cannot stop it. It is going to happen whether humans are here or not. Okay? So my question is, why don't the conservatives take a point of view that says, because we cannot predict or know when climate change is truly going to change our way of life, shouldn't we prepare for that now? Isn't that what we should be preparing for? Because, again, whether humans are here or not, the climate is going to change. And sometimes, I'm not an expert, but apparently geology shows this stuff, where it shows when the poles flip, and when the poles flip, when north becomes south and south becomes north, shit goes off in the Earth's atmosphere, and on the Earth's mantle, and apparently in the core as well. I don't know. I don't understand it, but it's happened even when humans weren't here. So it's going to happen whether we're here or not. So is the question, we have to figure out a way to slow this down? Or should the question be, we need to figure out a way to prepare for this when it does eventually come? You get me? Isn't it kind of a waste of a thought process if you know something is inevitable to try and slow it down? Could you imagine? Let's look at this. If you knew that your family member was going to die in 6 months, you know what? I'm kind of changing my mind here. All right, what I was about to say is if you knew a family member was about to die in 6 months, would you want to do everything you can to keep that, you know what, let's say this, because this is a better analogy. You know for sure your relative is going to die in 6 months. There's no stopping it. There's no chances, 100% sure. It's 100% sure your relative is going to die in 6 months. So, just like the world going through cycles, and eventually the climate is going to change whether we're here or not, and it's going to have a dramatic effect on the atmosphere and the temperature and the way of life we would have to get used to. Does it make more sense to slow that down, even though we know it's going to happen eventually? Or does it make more sense to prepare for it when it does happen? Going back to the analogy of your family member who has 6 months to live, it's 100% certain. It could go past that 6 months a little bit, but it's 100% certain that they're going to die. Now, are you going to spend your money on more treatments, on trying to extend that life, even though you know they're going to die at some point? Or are you going to spend your money on enjoying the rest of that life? I think that's a pretty good analogy. That's a fair question. If the earth was a family member, and you knew that this family member was going to die in 6 months, could be 8, could be 10, they could even make it to a year, but it was 100% certain that they were going to die, would you, ask yourself this question, would you spend money on treatments that might work, might not work, could cause more problems, might work, might not work, to extend that life a little bit longer? Or would you spend more money on fulfilling that life for what it has left? I think for me personally, if that was my deathbed, I wouldn't want my family to spend more money on me. I'd say enjoy what you have. And I think that's true to life in that analogy. That is life. Enjoy your life. Enjoy the money that you have with your life that you have now. So why not spend the money that we have now to prepare for that future that is inevitable, so that more people can live in that future that is inevitable? Just a thought. Maybe not the best analogy. Think about it. Think about it a little bit.